You know, like I want to see the best fights happen. That's why what Arthur and Dimitri did was so great.
Right.
When they're both at pretty much at their primes, they're fighting, and instead of the whole long delay, like the Boots and Crawford. We all want to see that fight.
Right.
For whatever reason, it's not happening. And I love Bud Crawford. I think he's great. But we all want to see that fight. You know,
Right.
we want to see Canelo win Benavidez. There's so many fights that are held up because of the politics and stuff like that, and it stinks.
And you know what? It makes you appreciate Sugar Ray Leonard when you realize in the span of from November 1979 until September of 81, he fought Roberto Duran twice. He fought Tommy Hearns. He fought which other fight was it? Benitez. I mean, just those four guys. Plus, he had a couple other fights in between. But in that span of time, he fought Duran twice, Benitez, and Hearns. You know, Benitez was undefeated. Duran had one loss and like 62 victories, and Hearns was undefeated. And these guys, they fight. You know, they would who today would do that? You know, in the last few years, the only ones I can think of is like Bernard Hopkins, Oscar De La Hoya. You know, they would have made those fights. You know, but you know, the guys today, there's plenty of big fights to be made, and they're not. Yeah, they're not Sugar. There's very few Sugar Ray Leonards in this world.
No, there is, and I feel like a lot of it's become that mentality of protecting your
Right? Yeah. Right. Floyd is great. Like Floyd's a great fighter and undefeated and all that, but he rubbed off on all these guys.
Yeah.
And they all want to follow his blueprint, and they want to make the most money possible. You know, and at some point, it's like it's a business, right? And we all know that. So they're hammering it home. It's a business. We got to maximize our earning potential. We got to make the money, you know. But sometimes you got to say, listen, man, I want to really be great. Like I want 100 years from now, I want them to remember me, you know. And we're going to remember Roberto Duran. He had all these losses. Duran had like 16 losses by the end of his career. We're going to remember Duran forever. We're going to remember Sugar Ray Leonard forever. You know what I mean? It's just they did it. They stepped up, and that's all that at the end of it all, that's all we really care about. You know, like when he think about it, Tommy Hearns got stopped by Sugar Ray Leonard. He got stopped. TKO, right? Nobody cares about that. When they meet him, they want to talk about that fight, how awesome it was and how great it was. Yeah. Half the people forget that he even lost it. They don't even realize he lost the fight. They're just talking about he's the guy that fought Sugar Ray in that unbelievable war, and they went back and forth, and it was right down to the wire. You know, he was undefeated, and you know, it's just a different mentality. And we're every decade, if you look at the 40s and the 50s and 60s and right up until today, you know, the fighters are becoming more business-like. They, you know, they're part-time rappers and they're entrepreneurs and they've got a clothing line, you know, and all this stuff. And you know, it's just weird because back in the day, like Hagler. I mean, Hagler. You know, I grew up in New England, so I know all the stories about Marvin, and you know, he was that guy, man. Like he didn't care about any of that. You know, he just wanted you dead. You know, and that's how he was going to make money, was by killing you. So, and he would fight. He would have fought anybody on earth to get.
That's how I felt about Manny Pacquiao. I think Manny Pacquiao was probably the last.
Yeah, look at Manny's. Yeah, for sure. All those guys. Yeah.
I mean, there's one guy that I really think he's looking for all the big fights, but for some strange reason can't get him, and I think that's Teofimo Lopez. He wants to fight Bud. He wants to fight Gervonta. He wants to fight Boots, and can't get a fight. I mean, how do you feel about Teofimo? This is my last question. I know you got to go. You know, him not getting what he deserves right now.
I mean, you know, I really like him. You know, his fight with Loma. You know, he's obviously, you know, he's really good and all of that. But the problem with guys like him and most of them, you know, they're not fighting unless they fight the biggest fights, right? James Toney had like, I don't know, 75 fights or whatever, because he fought non-title fights like the old time, like Ezra Charles and Joe Louis and those guys did, Ray Robinson. They fought non-title fights in between their title fights just to keep busy and to keep sharp for less money, right?
Mm-hmm.
They don't do that now. If the guys today only want the biggest fights for the biggest money, or they're not fighting. So when is the last time Teofimo even fought? I have no idea. And in the last 3 years, how many times he fought? 2, 3?
Yeah,
That's not, he's in the prime of his life. He's supposed to fight 6 times a year.
6
these guys
times.
Yes, look at James Toney's record. James was fighting 5 times. Listen to this. You may not know this. Your listeners may not know this. I'm going to tell you what happened. I'm going to tell you an amazing stat. This is the mentality of James Toney. There's nobody today that has this mentality. When he fought Michael Nunn, people forget, Michael Nunn was superstar. Michael Nunn was pound for pound number 1 at the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
James was nobody. James was not a big name in the game at all when he fought Michael Nunn. He fights Michael Nunn. He's losing the fight going into the 11th, I think it was. He's behind on the scorecards. Comes up with a late round miracle knockout. Knocks out Michael Nunn. You know what he did next? He fought Reggie Johnson 6 weeks later.
Jesus.
He fought him the following month. Whatever. He fought him immediately. That means he had to go right back to training camp. He scored the victory of a lifetime. Beating Michael Nunn at that time was gigantic. It was unbelievable. He turns around, fights Reggie Johnson 6 weeks later. Now, you tell me anyone on earth today who's going to do that, who has that mentality. Nobody.
Yeah, you're right.
Nobody. Right. And that's what we're missing. We're missing James Toney's way of thinking.
That is incredible, man. The game is definitely different.
Yeah. I challenge anyone. Look it up. Look it up on BoxRec. Look at the dates. Look at the date he fought Michael Nunn. Look at the date he fought Michael Nunn, and then look at the date his next fight was.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's insane, man.